It's Chelsea,
It's Nina.
and you're in the Critics' Kingdom.
And welcome to another week of the Critics' Kingdom. Today we're going to be reviewing Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure, the last of the high school musical universe, Disney Channel original movies.
Yes. I will say that this was our first time watching this one because it came out in 2011, so we were both going to college. So we did not watch we did not watch it when it came out.
Beyond that, didn't know it came out. I
remember I heard about it because the thing is, I remember from High School Musical, low key, Sharpay was like my favorite character because she was just funny, like unintentionally funny
all the time. I think that they played her up. Like once they realized, I think from the first movie they realized that people liked her a lot because that's also the only reason why she would have gotten her own film, I imagine.
Yeah, no, she was definitely like the only one that people would have cared to see do a separate film.
Yeah,
like I personally would not have cared to see what Troy Bolton or Gabriella Montez were doing at the University of Albuquerque.
Literally doesn't matter. Didn't Gabriella go to Yale?
She might. Yeah.
I really don't know.
I don't know. She might have gone to an Ivy or to Stanford.
Maybe. I don't know. I read the Wikipedia page, but I forgot. It didn't stick. So yeah, it came out in 2011, which was, a good amount. I mean, a good amount of time after the release of the third film, but in theater. Like the third film was released in theaters, which is also why we are not covering it in this particular podcast. So I think it came out 3 years after that last film.
Yeah, the last one came out in 2008.
Yeah, so a lot after the fact, which we will get into later. But with that, Chelsea, would you like to get into the recap?
Yes. So, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure opens up with Sharpay performing at her parents' country club that we just left in High School Musical 2. And she's performing like a new song, and the lighting and everything is all professional. Afterward, everybody applauds, and she goes to see her parents in the atrium area, and they're talking to this big Broadway producer and casting director, Jerry Taylor. And he was like, "Oh, like you were so great. I absolutely love it." And it's her and her dog, because she carries that dog everywhere. Because again, this is supposed to be a Paris Hilton parody, I'm guessing. And he like offers her a chance to star in his next Broadway show. He's like, "I think you'd be great. Like, this would be awesome. You should come to New York and, we can make it happen." So immediately she goes to her dad and she's like, "Dad, I need to go to New York like ASAP." And he was like, "I don't know, Sharpay. I feel like you got to figure it out here." And this is where we learned that she actually has taken a gap year essentially to kind of figure out what she wants to do and what she wants to pursue. And so she's just been at home this whole time, a year after they all graduated from East High. And her dad finally relents, is like, okay, I will let you go to New York and I will pay for you to have a penthouse and like for you to do your thing, but you only have a month. And if you don't get it together in a month, you're packing your bags and coming right back here to Albuquerque. So she's like, all right, that sounds good. Gets to New York, and her mother tells her, "Oh, you also need to meet with one of my college friends. Her son goes to like the equivalent of NYU essentially, and he's like trying to be a director. His name is Peyton. You need to meet with him, and while you're in New York." So she was like, okay. So she finally gets to New York, gets into her penthouse. It's beautiful. She loves it. Her and her dog Boy are like, just having time of their lives. And then the woman who owns the building or is on the co-op, whatever, comes in, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you love it, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "But you can't have this dog." And Sharpay is like, "What do you mean?" Boy is like, "My best friend." And the girl's like, "Yeah, no, we're no pets allowed building. Like, you can't have the dog. So you either have to get out or you get rid of the dog." And Sharpay's like, "Well, my dad's paying for all of this and you need our money." She does not realize this is New York.
Exactly.
And they need nobody's money because there's always another buyer. Or a renter.
Love capitalism.
Literally. So they kick her out on her ass. This is when she decides she's going to contact Peyton, her mother's friend's son. Peyton comes and picks her up, and he sees all of her pink luggage and is like, okay. And he's like videotaping everything because he thinks he's True from True's Confessions. And he's like, oh, like, I love this. Like, this is so funny, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, don't just tape me, like, help me. So he takes her to his apartment building, and he's like, I can get you a studio here. And she goes into his studio, and she was like, this is a broom closet. And he is like, you are absolutely correct. But your broom closet is over there. So then he takes her to her studio, which is a typical New York studio. I will say, like, they actually did this pretty true to what it looks like. It was like decrepit, falling apart in some places, a little grimy. But that's a shock for her because obviously she just came from a literal penthouse and she has all this pink luggage and she's like, I hate this, but I will make the best of the situation.
Hate this.
So then she makes Peyton chip in with her and like completely redecorates the place into like a pink palace. And she's like, all right, well, I have this audition tomorrow and I'm going to get this Broadway gig. And he's like, wow, this is like a lot of stuff you got going on here for being here for approximately 10 minutes. And she's like, yeah, I know, I'm already going to be this big person, blah, blah, blah. And she goes the next morning to the audition and she goes to Jerry and she's like, hey, like, I'm here for the audition. And the production is called A Girl's Best Friend. And he's like, oh, great, you brought Boy. Boy is perfect, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, what do you mean? And then he's like, yeah, like the audition's for Boy or Dog, not for you. And she's like, that makes no sense, but okay. She decides she's just going to take it and she wants Boy to get it, even though she's like really pissed because she's like, why did you not tell me this? And he's like, I'm so sorry I didn't make things clear. And she's just seething, but she's like, fine, Boy can, audition because she sees that her favorite Broadway actress, Amber Lee, is the star of this musical. So she's going to be able to meet her. So, and then Boy will be able to work with her. So she meets Amber Lee, who's a super nice Broadway star, like seems like very down to earth and very nice and chill with everybody. And they also get another dog who comes in the running, who is owned by this like 12-year-old boy named Roger Elliston. And the dog's name is Countess. So then what ends up happening is Boy and Countess end up in this like competition where they're trying to figure out which dog is going to make it to the final like Broadway show part. So they just like switch them out whenever they're like rehearsing with Amber Lee. And they just, switch them on and out. And then in the meantime, Sharpay tries to get closer and closer to Amber Lee because she's like, if I get close to Amber Lee, then Boy's more likely to get the job. Plus, like, Amber Lee is her like idol. So Amber Lee one day is like yelling at her assistant and ends up firing her on the spot. And Sharpay then comes in and is like, oh my gosh, Amber Lee, like, I could totally be your assistant. I understand you. I know you. And she's really just thinking, and now my dog will have a better chance of like getting in to be the dog on the production. So Amber Lee is like, oh yes, you'd make a perfect assistant. We could be best friends, blah, blah, blah. And then like basically low key hires Sharpay to almost be her maid. She calls her in the middle of the night and is like, I need you to resort like my shoes and stuff. And makes her like do all like the little, like go get this, go get that, like get my laundry, come over whenever I need you. And she's like, that's what best friends do, is like how she like gets Sharpay to do it. And after doing this for a little while, Sharpay is getting very annoyed because she's just like, I'm a super rich girl. Like, this is my job to do that to other people. You can't do that to me. So she is annoyed by that, but she keeps doing it because she's like, it's all for Boy to get this job, like blah, blah, blah. And then one day they get to set and Boy and Countess have actually like ran off with one another and nobody can find them. Like her and Roger are like looking all over the place for them. And Peyton ends up actually finding the dogs. And he then reunites them with, their respective owners. And he tells Sharpay that she needs to start trusting her own talent rather than selling her soul to get ahead in the industry, because she's been doing all this crazy stuff for Amber. And she just kind of pays Peyton dust and is like, yeah, but you don't know this industry. And then goes back to doing what she was already doing. And then her and Roger keep playing tricks on each other whenever the opposite dog is like acting with Amber, they play a trick so that dog starts acting up. So then Amber and the producers are less likely to choose them. But one day she's like going by Amber Lee's dressing room and she overhears Amber saying like, "Ugh, I hate dogs so much. Like, honestly, I just want to get rid of them." And the producer's like, "Well, it's called A Girl's Best Friend, so you can't really do that." And they're like, "Well, she's like, I don't care. Like, it's my play, so you guys have to do what I want you to do." And they are like, "Well, we'll see what we're gonna do." So Sharpay realizes like basically she's gonna get rid of the dogs because she gets what she wants. So she teams up with Roger then, and they like had this plan when a bunch of I think school children are coming to visit the set or something. They're like,
I
"Oh,
think that
well,
they're like doing a pre-screening, a previewing of the show. It's like a pre.
yeah, it's like a what do they call that? Not a dress rehearsal. There's a name for it. It's previews, I get previews. That's what they call
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're doing previews for the show, and while Amber's getting ready, they basically hot mic her. Like they put the mic on and they leave it on her while she's like getting dressed and getting ready, and then they have one of the dogs like they smear some chicken on her shoes so then the dogs will come running so that she can show her true colors, and which is exactly what happens. She starts freaking out and she's like, "No, these freaking dogs! I hate dogs so much." Blah 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 blah. And obviously, it's a bunch of white people, so that's like the worst thing you could ever say. Um, and they heard the whole thing because the mic is hot, so it's on. And she turns around and like everybody heard her say that, and so she's pissed. Everybody officially like hates her, but she's like, "I didn't do this to myself. Somebody did this to me." And then Sharpay basically is like, "Yeah, I did that." So then they're like, "Well, Sharpay, you and your dog are fired. So y'all gotta go." And Sharpay's like, "I guess I'll take that. Like, fine." And then the next day they assemble all the cast and crew besides Amber Lee because Amber Lee decides she wants to quit. So they're like, "The show is going to be canceled because like we don't have a star anymore." But somehow Peyton is there and he's like, "Well, I have this video that I took covertly of Sharpay singing the main song and you should watch it." So then they watch it and they're like so moved that they're like, "We need Sharpay as our lead." So Sharpay ends up getting hired officially as the lead, and they have this big debut and the big premiere with her parents and the paparazzi and the producers, and everybody's there to support her as the lead of A Girl's Best Friend. And that is how it ends.
And with that, we will be right back with the review. Into the review. This movie doesn't need to exist. That's like that's actually all like that's what I can say about it. It's not it just came out so much later than like all of the other High School Musical films. And it's not about the principal cast. It's not really about anyone in the principal cast except Sharpay. None of the principal cast show up at all. Although apparently, I guess her brother shows up in some sort of like secret ending that premiered on television, but isn't available on Disney Plus. Um, and it's also just a wild departure from everything about High School Musical. Um, it's just it plays a lot more like an indie. Yeah, it reminds me of like Uptown Girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just not. It's just a very very different film in the universe. It's and I therefore then question like first of all how much money did they pay Ashley Tisdale to do this, and because I mean um and just like who like I just don't know the intention of the film like or the intention behind the film. Like, was it an attempt to keep High School Musical alive? Was it an attempt to like get younger kids into the franchise? Like, I just don't. And if it was, this was just a strange way to go about it. Now, mind you, like you said, like I actually would not have cared to watch anything about Troy or Gabriella or the rest of them, but it also would have made more sense to try to make something about Troy or Gabriella or anybody else. You know what I mean? Like it's or at least include them in it somewhere. It was just it's a weird standalone film of the universe.
Yeah, I think what we were saying, and I think how I saw this one is I was like, I think this would have done a lot better right after High School Musical 3 came out. So like if High School Musical 3 it came out in 2008, if this had come out in like 2009 or maybe later on in 2008,
Yeah.
I think it would have done a lot, or I think I would have been able to understand why they did it a lot more. It coming out 3 years later was just like it just felt like it was a very random way to, like you were saying, keep the name and the brand alive. Um, but in a weird way. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if it didn't really do that, because I was like, I feel like you guys did what you wanted to do with it properly when they just made High School the Musical the series in 2017. You know, like it had been like almost 10 years, or it had been 10 years actually since the first one. So that's the way you get a new group of people, is you like make it with a new group of kids, you know? So I feel like this just felt like a weird grab at something, and it didn't really work out all that well. I will say I did enjoy Sharpay as a character, like I was saying earlier. She was always just like she's a fun side character because she's just ridiculous. Like that's the whole thing. She's just a
Yeah.
ridiculous person, and she's just really into her musical theater and arts. And that's her shtick. Like that's just her whole thing. And it's like, okay, like that's cool. And she was always funny. She had some good quips. And this one she had some good quips too, but it did feel wholly unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
it's wholly unnecessary. As a film, instead of just making it like, I don't know, vignettes or something. I mean, like I just think of like all the times when Disney, I don't know if they still have this, but when we were growing up, you had Mike's Super Short Show, and you had As the Bell Rings, The Older We
Yeah.
Got. Like they would have those little like 1 minute in between shows things, because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to show commercials. um,
It's true. It's
because
like
they're a
when
cable
I think
network.
back on it, it's like that's like I never watched commercials on Disney Channel. It, like
No,
was
I
it was
just literally
weird.
thought about that right now. Like I was just like, wait, they didn't have commercials. They had Mike's Super Short Show and As the Bell Rings, and like all of those little like 30-second to a minute long
Yeah.
little super short things. I actually think that would have been a much better version for the, or much better way to do this. Personally. Just do like little mini things. But yeah, it just felt very unnecessary. It does have Austin Butler in it, which, if you're somebody who is like into the news and stuff now, he's like one of those like really big up and coming actors, and he's going to be playing Elvis in the Baz Luhrmann adaptation that's coming out at some point soon, I guess, or next year. I don't know. So now he's like super, big. But it is very interesting to see him in this role as Peyton, where he's playing second fiddle to Sharpay. um, but yeah, it just, the quips were good in this one, but meh,
Yeah, that's just where it lives. It's a meth film. I mean, I do think that they do a pretty they do a fair job, a reasonable job of sort of expressing of like shattering her expectations, of showcasing the way in which is it's very true for a lot of kids who like come to the city with big dreams and think that it's going to they're just not prepared for the fact that it's going to be very, very difficult to get there.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not going to be a quick turnaround. You're going to be broke and miserable for a long time. She's lucky that she knew somebody in the city. A lot of people come and they don't have friends, and they have to figure out how to make friends there. Like it's just it's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
And it's riddled with like true tests and challenges of like willpower. And you have to stick that out in order to get to that whatever the next level is that you would like to be. You have to do it. So like they do a reasonable job of showcasing that. Now obviously it's a kids film, so things just work out.
Right. Of course.
Like it all just works out, which like that's just entirely unrealistic. It's also deeply unrealistic that like I'm sorry, it's Broadway, and like the patrons of the theater love the theater, support the theater, do what they have to do to keep the theater alive, but Broadway is not making a crazy amount of money. right?
Right.
That's not. It's a like Broadway. Like Broadway is a passion project more so than it's not, or theater is a passion project more so than it's not.
Yeah, you do it for the love of it.
And and there's just no scenario where like a new show about like a girl and her dog that like isn't necessarily that good of a show to begin with loses its headliner, and they're gonna just replace her with an unknown, no credit having new talent. Like the chances of that are deeply, deeply slim because people probably won't come to see that. And the headliner leaving will look bad.
Exactly. I think it's yeah, that was the part where I was like, okay, this is a kid's movie. When that happens, I was like, there's literally no way. I'm sorry. There's also no way that a casting director would not, if they liked your dog, not say I like your dog.
Yeah. That would
Like
have
from
been
the
made very
beginning,
clear.
because even we were confused until they got to that point where he was like, "Oh, I was talking about your dog," and I'm like, "Okay, but you never specified that. Why would you not specify that?"
Yeah. That's
That's
like,
no.
yeah. That's not how casting works. They're
In
very direct and very explicit because they have to be.
if
Like you
nothing
can't.
else, like if nothing else.
Yeah, like you kind of have to be. But yeah, I mean, it was like it was fine. Like you said, there were some. Sharpay has always been very sort of like witty, and she's always had. She just throws good shade. Like
Yeah.
she's good at that shit. Has been from jump, and it's all like it was pleasure. Trying that again. It was pleasant watching her do that for a full film because, as you said, like those were some of the best moments of High School Musical. I would argue, but outside of that, it's just interesting because it's like even for like a decom, it just feels like it lives in a weird space.
Yeah, it's
Because we don't have any
I
other
don't
decoms
know.
about kids like in like that age range is not
Yeah.
typical of like there are no real Disney Channel original movies about kids in college or kids like on the cusp
Twitches
of
is
college.
the
So,
only one
like
I can think of. And I
that's
remember
true.
we even
Twitches they
remarked
are in
on it.
college. Yeah.
Yeah, and we remarked on the second one. I think the first one.
No, she's in college in the first
Oh
one
yeah, because
too.
they're driving around that Porsche. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
the
I don't
Porsche.
know
That's
what that has
definitely
nothing to do
their
with
own Porsche.
college, but like that just makes me think about it.
Yeah, but even then, like that was the thing of like sister had been on. Like they couldn't like at that point they were like 30.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you couldn't put them in high school. Like that wouldn't have made any goddamn sense. Like they were grown women. And everyone knew that because we grew up with them. But like this is a little it's just a little stranger, and a little weird because she's also not in college proper. You know? It's just all very it was very interesting. But I also understand why it probably didn't do very well comparatively to other
Yeah.
coms and definitely comparative in comparison to High School Musical.
Yeah, I think it was just it was the wrong timing, the wrong demo. It just wasn't because even the kids who probably watched 2008 who watched HSM 3 by 2011, they're probably all in high school. They're not watching Disney anymore. And then the younger kids may not have the same, even though I know they play High School Musical all the time, but like they just may not have the exact same affinity.
Yeah,
So it's just, yeah, it just felt it felt very off for a
yeah,
DCOM catalog. And we also, I don't think we've ever had a movie that's just about the sorry, she's not random, but about like just the side character, not even a sidekick, but the side character.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I will say I said this before. I think I said it on the High School Musical 2 pod.
Episode.
Yes, I don't know what's going on today, man.
Is Mercury in retrograde?
It might be. That might be what's going on. But yeah. So my little sister I asked her about this because I was like, "Did you care about Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure?" And she had a very like she was like, I think she had sort of the response that I have when people ask me about High School Musical 3, where I'm like, I know I watched it, but I mean, because she was like, oh, like I have a like she's like, I know that I watched it, I didn't care, and I'm pretty sure I only watched it once. Like it didn't like there wasn't much excitement about it, and like when I watched, I was like, okay, and moved on with my life. So even though those people for whom like this was, I guess, like the target audience for, because I guess the idea was that you wanted it to, like in the way that Toy Story did that, where it's like you wanted to reflect the age of the children watching it, or who saw it the first time. Like yeah, she was like, yeah, no, or the concerns of the children who watched it the first time. She was like, yeah, I didn't fuck with it. My friends didn't fuck with it. It came and it went. So, yeah, I just don't think it did what they wanted to do.
It wasn't giving what they thought it was giving.
At all.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, like we said, it's okay. There were some funny quips. Like I think we both wrote down a few quotes that we thought were funny. And they also weirdly they did Amber Lee in a weird way because like
it
there's
went a
one
little too deep.
yeah, like they had one point when we first meet her where she's like, I love the Great White Way, which is, a euphemism for Broadway if you don't know. And she's like, but I also love all colors. And it's like, what?
It's like, I don't, what?
I was like, was that necessary? I don't know. Like, thanks, I guess. I truly don't know how to feel about this.
It's also very strange because there are like no black people, like there are no people of color in this. Or I guess the casting director is because he's played, isn't it what's his name from oh god, it's gonna drive me crazy.
They have one of them is Filipino.
Yeah, but he's like, isn't he like he's in stuff?
Yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff. Alec Mapa is his name.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff. But like, which is again, how much money did you pay him? Like, I just have questions. But outside of that, it's like there are no other people of color that I can recall in the film.
No, you're not wrong. You're correct.
So like, what, like, what was the? And we don't really return to that as a like. It was just a very. I was like, why didn't she say that? Why didn't you cut that line from the film, from the edit? Like, I don't, when you played the whole movie, like, I guess that's just supposed to be one of those things of like to showcase how like fake she is. But I'd rather we not use race to do that. Can we just moving forward?
It's like, can we just not?
Can we not do that? It's a turbulent time. It's always been a turbulent time. The rest of y'all are just now catching up, but let's just stop. Let's stop with that. That's a call that I'll make on this podcast.
I will say she was pretty typical of a lot of bosses, though, entertainment bosses.
Yeah. Yeah, like there were moments in that where I was like, yeah, man. And I think that's kind of part of what I meant, where it's like you're gonna have to like do some things you don't want to do. Like, yeah, like I've definitely had friends who are like scrubbing actresses' toilets. Like that's a real thing. I mean, but
yeah, I feel like
do what you gotta do.
It's like what you were saying, where it strangely is actually a very good representation of the entertainment industry to a degree, in terms of like you can come in and be the hottest person ever and have all the connections, have all the money. In Sharpay's case, mostly have all the money. And you can start at this industry at the bottom and like nobody will care.
Yeah.
Like literally nobody will care. It's like the only equalizing thing they have in this industry.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's also why, like, ironically enough, that's why a lot of like top spaces in the industry can afford to pay their lowest level or assistants pennies, like no money, because they know that the vast majority of those people in those positions actually do come from like some form of money. or have like some like sort of very stable financial situations, so that like they're not nickel and diming off of that paycheck.
Right.
So like your money and your breeding kind of like it might be helpful to get you in the door, but in terms of like grunt work,
you're still
and
doing
like
it.
having to pay your dues, yeah, you just got to do that. Like there's no real like you got to do it. For the most part, like there are obviously always exceptions, but
generally,
you know, yeah. But if you're trying to be an agent, like you're not gonna, nobody's gonna just hire you to be an agent. You're gonna start in the mailroom, and you're gonna have to work your way up.
No, exactly. It is truly the one thing that they normalize for everyone. Like we don't care. We don't really care who you are. You're just kind of gonna do this.
Exactly. Creates a very interesting culture, I will say.
Entertainment.
Like yeah, because like there's this, and I mean it's also like we're seeing it, like all of the repercussions of these things hopefully starting to happen now. Scott Rudin's like, you know, a big deal that just happened. But it's also part of what creates the psychology of like horrible bosses.
Yep.
Because it's always this thing of like I had to do all of that, and I had to do worse than you because there were less rules about what was acceptable, like what was unacceptable to do to other people in society. Mm-hmm. So like shut up and go get me the salad the way that I asked for it.
Right.
Like,
no, it is. I was actually speaking with a friend about the whole Rudin situation, and she was saying like, oh, you know what's funny is entertainment is like one of the few industries where having a bad personality and being a horrible boss to your staff is considered a positive trait. Yeah. And it is 100% true, because then what really happens is you actually get a mystique, which is positive in this industry, and in some other industries. It's like if you're known as like, oh well, you can survive that person,
yeah,
then it's like, oh wow, they must really, they're a crazy genius or whatever, you know, like it goes like that way. So it is very interesting that they also show that off here, and especially from like a talent perspective, because yes, a lot of talent can be finicky.
Persnickety. It can be a turbulent experience. Working
not
through
a
talent.
turbulent experience.
Like that's a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and you know the wavelength in between pride. That. Yeah,
which is what Sharpay was doing in this movie. You really have to swallow pride. You have to swallow your ego, and if somebody wants you to like go out and cut all their grapes up every Friday, then you got to cut up all the grapes on a Friday, even if you think it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's not your decision to make.
Yeah, and if you can't hack it, then you got to bounce. Like if you can't do that, like, and that's okay. Like there's a certain level to which, like, you know, I almost respect the people that are like, I'm not doing that. Like I'm not going to degrade myself to do that, and have the pride to like walk away like from that. Like great for you. You know, everybody's got to do what they've got to do to like be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you gotta just walk away. Like if you can't do it, you gotta walk away, because that's like part of the things that, like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, no one should be throwing anything at people. Like that's absurd. But like, yeah, somebody wants their salad a certain way. Like, you gotta get them the salad a certain way, or you shouldn't be working for them. You know?
Yeah. No, you just have to learn somebody's ticks.
Yeah.
Like, you know, their little idiosyncrasies.
And that's what a personal assistant is, you know? Like, that is what that job entails.
Yeah. You're literally just like, I will essentially do your beck and call whenever you need me to.
Yeah. Which is also a big distinction, and I'm glad that they do that in this. Like, she's not an assistant to the production or anything like that. She is an assistant to the actress.
Right.
Amber Lee is her name.
Right.
And that is a very specific job.
Yes.
In which you are at someone's beck and call.
Right. Because there is no HR in that.
Really, it's not.
If we're being honest, production.
You gotta like
productions. You have more people involved with you, so it's like there's at least some sort of maybe system that might, like, come into play should something go really wrong. But you
But
don't really have that if you
yeah,
are
it's
just
like
like the
you have to
assistant to an
like
actress or whatever.
yeah, it has to be like your HR is like a police report or a lawsuit. Like it's not there's no there's no claim to be filed. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's the only thing that you can do. And if that person and if like people have the buddies like have personal assistants and like have them do certain things because they know that they can pay them to do those things, like they probably can pay you enough to settle. So I mean,
Yeah. Or just
um,
not even get to that point and just go away.
exactly. Exactly. So I guess with all of that, Chelsea, do you think that you would show this to your kids?
No. Like not in a situation that it's like harmful. It's truly harmless. But it's just like there was no point for it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing even there's not really even redeeming qualities to it. Like if I'm really thinking about it. Like it's like, yeah, she gets a couple quips in that are kind of funny, but like other than that, no. There's better versions of this type of story out there.
Yeah. That's for sure.
What about you?
Um I think it falls into that thing of like if they turn it on, whatever. Like you said, it is a completely harmless film. Um and like the takeaway lessons are like fundamental. You know what I mean? Like at the end, she does own up to the fact that she's the one who did that to Amber Lee.
Right.
You know, like Amber Lee does get a form of justice, but she gets a form of justice too. Like even like the base, unlike High School Musical 2, the morality of this film makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And so like there's nothing in it that I would object to or feel would warrant further discussion with children. I am having a problem today after they I don't know what is going on, y'all. After they watch this film, so they can watch it. I can't like it would be strange to me if it became like a favorite movie of theirs. There's always that possibility, you know what I mean? Because kids are fickle, but I would be very surprised if that happened. If they asked me, like, "Mommy, should we watch Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure? We already watched all the High School Musicals. Should we watch Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure?" I'd be like, "You really don't have to." It's not something that you gotta do, but follow your own heart. But I would not be in the room. I wouldn't be in the room. She does say some funny things though.
She does. No,
she does keep that. They write her very well.
She says some very funny things.
Yeah, they write her well in that. But it's like as you said, like there are just other movies that do this better. Like I'd rather us watch something else that I could also enjoy with them.
Let's have them watch The Assistant.
Just traumatize them super early.
At like 8 years old.
Exactly.
They're just I feel tight. Like I feel a tightening in my chest.
All of the anxiety. Yeah, let's just do that.
Is this anxiety?
Is this what anxiety is, Bobby? Am I having a panic attack? Yes, little one, you are.
Oh no.
And it's important that you experience this early. That's all a joke. Don't show kids The Assistant.
No, please don't. But you should watch it if you want an inside look at entertainment and being an assistant.
Yeah, it's very accurate in terms of just depicting the level of anxiety and like here's the thing, like, The Assistant is based on many bad bosses, but there are certain specific things about it, like the apology thing that
oh my god,
very rooted in like things Scott Rudin does. So
yes.
That. But yeah, so I guess with that, yeah, I guess we will catch you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Critics Kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and SoundCloud so you can stay up to date, as well as interacting and letting us know what you guys think on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Critics Kingdom and on Instagram at The Critics Kingdom. We're excited to talk to you again next week.